having this many people on this panel and me having to sit on this speaker is kind of perfectly indicative of how much social good stuff is happening in Austin. And Ruben, we'll get to you in a bit, but I feel like he's really reflective, so Ruben came to at the end, and that his journey personally really reflects South by. He was probably, I don't know how many people know that you were in music and music journalism and, as a beginning piece, and now is responsible for the creation of South by Good and Everyone Work From Home Day and things like that have really kind of taken this week in Austin by storm over many, many years of planning and coming together as a community. So just quickly kind of running through the panel. Ruben, we'll get to him in a bit, but talk to him about community impact. He's got local accelerator program as well as a program for high school kids, trying to get them to be more impactful from a very young age and igniting that spark in them, that spark of empathy, that spark of community action, that then necessarily and often drives those people to become entrepreneurs later on. Next to him is Scott McElroy, who has an app for social giving. He told me to say it's your app for social giving, so he's obviously got a story behind that. Next to him, in the middle, is Jeremy Ford from Dell. He's the newly appointed head of giving at Dell. I kind of like that his name is Jeremy Ford from Dell because I know a guy whose name is Jeremy Dell who works at Ford. So he'll speak a little bit to what Dell is all about in terms of also how a big company can affect corporate giving and social impact in ways that obviously that are much different to some of the smaller accelerators and programs that are happening in the city. And of course Dell is here in Round Rock in Texas, so good local representation from a major brand as well as doing great work in the space. Stephen in the center with the cool shirt with the lightning bolt on it. I love logos with lightning bolts. I have one as well because that's that spark, that's that idea. The charity charge is a credit card that gives 1% of its 1% cashback to any non-profit, paid through 12 schools, charities, religious organizations. Right? Well, good. And works here at WeWork. As an office here at WeWork. Next to him, Dave Heath from Bombas Socks. Some people know him as one of the stars of season 6. He knew what I was going to say before I even said it. Season 6 of Shark Tank, where they, did you get an investment? Yeah, Damon John, right? Yeah, Damon John invested in Bombas Socks. They give a pair of socks to the homeless for every pair of socks sold, so kind of a buy one, give one model. But have distributed probably more than 400,000 pairs of socks around, or around $1 million. So scrap what I was about to say because that was bullshit. Double it and then like add another couple hundred thousand. So we're about to do $1 million pair of socks, which is awesome. Congratulations, that's amazing. And obviously there's some pairs of socks. Wait, are we counting these? Because these people are not homeless. You know that, they're just from Austin, they're hipsters, it's confusing. Okay. And then here we have our low female representation. I think that's important to point out because we'd love to see some more female entrepreneurs and others up here next year. Very cool. So Chelsea McCullough is someone who is basically entrepreneurial about representing entrepreneurs and brings people together and represents tech in politics and makes sure that that people in the technology sector are understood by politicians and vice versa, that they have that representation. And how recently launched Impact Hub Austin? Wednesday, 1 week ago, launched Impact Hub in Austin, which is a huge thing because that exists in maybe 2 other cities around. Very cool. It has won a ton of awards from a whole bunch of different entities here in Austin and elsewhere, and it is a pretty incredible connector of people itself. So I'm happy to be here. I do a bunch of social impact content and programs that are sponsored by and large, trying to come up with content that has a campaign aspect to it as well, and we get large brands to sponsor it. The thing that we're most known for, we sent a team of people to Sudan with 3D printers and they 3D printed a prosthetic arm for a boy who lost both his arms, and then set up a lab that essentially became the world's first 3D printing prosthetics facility, and it just happened to be in a country that operated, in a hospital that operated off solar power in the middle of a war zone. And that received a lot of attention, but wouldn't have happened in terms of its amplification without the power of a big brand behind it. Intel backed that project, which enabled us to amplify that message, make people aware of it, which meant that anyone around the world could ask for those files and download them too. So for us, it's all about how to scale those ideas and how to get them out to the masses. So I think we should start by basically asking each of you, what's the passion that each of you had that sparked your whole journey down this path?
I'll start with a hard question. What was the biggest start to my passion? I think it was just a curiosity and a constant willingness to say, how can I make this experience meaningful, really my experience. Starting in advertising and wanting to use that power for good led to economic development, which led to being in the middle of large communities, which led to being inspired by people in these large communities, and just kept following the path. I think this social good community, representative of everyone here, and I'm sure all of you, is super smart people who react with their hearts. And when those two things are in tandem, you just can't go wrong.
So I kind of always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dad's an entrepreneur, and after graduating college, I was always looking for business opportunities and business ideas, and I saw this social give back movement happening, with brands like Tom's and Warby Parker, and kind of just the stars aligned at the time where I read this article. And it said basically inside that socks were the #1 most requested clothing item in homeless shelters. And it was something that kind of stood out to me as not just a passing fact. It really kind of impacted me to think that's something that I never think about, and most people don't ever think about in terms of putting on every morning. Something so small, something so insignificant to most of us is seen as a real luxury to a lot of people. And couple that with heading out of the Great Recession and the evolution, I think, of the many different faces or new types of faces of homelessness, people who still kept their jobs but had to move into their car, but because of the downturn in the economy, and kind of coupling all those things together really kind of just all aligned for me, and that was kind of my main motivation for starting.
I'd echo a lot of what Dave had to say about the timing of everything. I had got the initial push to start Charity Charge after accumulating a lot of points with my credit card, and I logged in kind of excited. I felt like the time I signed up for the credit card with all these illusions of grandeur of how it was going to change my life. Come to find out a year later, after I accumulated all these points, that I could 5,000 points for a toaster oven or 25,000 points for an Olive Garden gift card. And as I logged out, I checked my email, and the nonprofit asked me to donate to them, and it kind of clicked of why is this not available. So for me, I think the start of this and the path into entrepreneurship was I wanted the product for myself. And then as I looked at it deeper, I realized that $16 billion in credit card rewards go expired every year. So it seemed like there was something bigger. And you look at companies like Bombas and Tom's and Warby Parker, there's all these companies that are just doing awesome things on the product level. And it seemed like this would be the right time to put something out there in the financial services space that would let people make an impact on everything that they purchased, no matter what the product was, what the store was, or the time of year.
Well, for me, it was a very personal journey in many respects, where I started out as an engineer. I've been at Dell for 16 years, led a couple businesses, actually kind of, in our terminology, startup businesses within a big company. And really, at least from my definition of success, really achieved a certain level of success from a corporate perspective, American dream perspective. And really, for me, it was about how do I begin to kind of address or transform my career so that it has much more significance than just personal success. And fortunate enough, instead of having to kind of eject all that I learned at Dell or all that I learned in the technology industry Dell provided a great, framework and already has a part of their mission of really looking at how does technology really transform people's lives. And it's really kind of been the mission and kind of the purpose of what Dell's been about for a number of years. And so really having the opportunity to kind of be able to evolve from where I wanted to go from a significance perspective and do so in a company that already values that has really been a great transformation. So it's been 3 months since I've been in the role. It's definitely been a culture shock both ways. Kind of coming from leading a business into leading a giving organization, but it's been a great ride so far. And it's been great to be a part of a company that really can use technology to not only kind of drive our business, but also kind of really change the way a lot of these social issues are being addressed. So that was kind of been my journey. So.
For me, it was very simple. I wanted to help people. Personally for me as well, I can remember growing up and being helped, being in difficult life situations and thinking, wow, that felt fantastic. And when I began to think about what's the best way to do that in 2015, 2016, giving is actually way more difficult than I think most of us imagine. Where today, in all of our pockets sitting here, there's probably a dozen apps for a dozen other specific things, and probably not one of them is to give to the nonprofits and the causes that we all care about. And when you think about that industry, the opportunity to do good, to help so many others in so many different ways, with such a simple product, such a simple process as far as giving money away, let's make that easier. Let's make that more enjoyable, more social, and a little more personal, where we can see how much we're giving on an annual basis, on a monthly basis, measure your impact. That way we can do those things much more consistently and more often, and with much more purpose as well. So for me, it was very simple. Let's help people. Let's figure out how to do that. And kind of here we are. So it's hopefully we keep going.
Raise your hand here if you're native Austinite. Wow, great. Good to know you. I'm a unicorn as well. Raise your hand here if you've been here for more than 10 years. About 10 years. Cool. And then raise your hand if you've been here 5 years or less. Think about how this city has changed in the past 5 years. So in 2011, I had created my company, Core Media Strategies. It's a social impact branding agency. We do video production as well. And I was trying to grow the company, and I was frustrated because I didn't want to just take on any clients to just make money. We wanted to actually work with clients that were making a difference. Unfortunately, I was in a small city that didn't have a strong social impact community. We had some initiatives, but the community had not coalesced yet. And so the reason we started Austin Plus Social Good, or what is known now as the Plus Social Good Global Community, was an effort to bring social entrepreneurs and change makers together to truly drive efforts not only in their local communities, but on a global level to collaborate. And so we've been able to do that now since 2013 when it was officially assembled. And to me, it's the most rewarding thing, because when I hear about Impact Hub Austin being launched, and I know my friends in Bogota, an Impact Hub there, and my friends in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and all of us working together, now this idea that I had of having Austin be a hub for social impact and social innovation is actually coming to fruition. And I'm glad to have all you guys on stage, because I see you as my peers, and hopefully we'll be able to collaborate together. And although it took a while to get there, and we're here now, and you guys are here listening to this, and we've actually helped build that vision together, so thank you.
Cool, very cool. That's really interesting how many people have just been here in the last 5 years. I've been here for the last 5 days. So, testament to that fact. So, Ruben, Chelsea, I want to know, because you guys are working with multiple businesses and multiple entrepreneurs as well, do you think that your role in this is prepping kind of the next generation, the next workforce to kind of step into social impact as a key ingredient in the business? Or do you feel that it's actually in reverse? It's that there are so many people that are demanding this sort of an environment and this sort of a business that it's more that you're responding to that need and to servicing those people, making sure they have an avenue?
I think it's both, actually. When we originally came together, and I say we, there's 5 founders, but it's a much bigger community. Ruben, you and I have worked together for so long. It's so exciting to see the city at this point. So we came together and very deliberately said we want this to be a big tent. Impact Hub Austin offers a co-working service, and we don't look at WeWork as a competitor, we look at WeWork as a collaborator. We don't look at Austin Plus Social Good as, oh, we're competing to see who's going to own this audience, and it's the most ridiculous thing. We're collaborating and celebrating each other. So our job is to prime the future folks who are coming into this space, whether they are experts, entrepreneurs, curious, doubters, everybody welcome, and just have a whole big tent philosophy, and responding. When we are going through the Impact Hub process, you have part of their application process, so to speak, is an onboarding process where you have to hold a community event, and the community has to come to that event and say, yes, we want an Impact Hub in our city. So I think it's all of the above.
To get real, as a metaphor, true change happens when residents reaches a critical peak, right? So change doesn't really happen solely on the grassroots level, and change doesn't happen solely at the top. It's when the top and the bottom kind of meet in the middle and say, okay, what are we going to do to actually make things happen? And so to answer your question, to resonate with her, with Chelsea, it is both. And our validation is when people come to us and say, we want to know how to do this. Will you show us? Not only from the grassroots level, but also from clientele who's like, well, all this conversation about social good, what does it mean? How do we start doing it? And how much is it going to cost me? And I say, it's not going to cost you, it's actually going to make you money. So let's sit down and have coffee.
It's an important point because everyone here, I don't think there's a non-profit here, right? None of these businesses are non-profits. So in terms of making social impact, that whole mentality has really undergone a seismic shift that if you want to do good, it's got to be one of these different structures. I mean, Bombard's for-profit, normal entities, social enterprise, but just set up like a normal company. I'd love you to address that and why you chose that model versus Stephen, I think you're a public benefit corporation, right? So, which is where Kickstarter just changed over to be a B Corp as well. So talk to me, and then Dell with their CSR, are they setting up a foundation to run this through or just earning through marketing? Like how's this working in a real world sense to have major impact?
Sure. So, we chose the traditional business model. Frankly, we saw some other people doing it in the space. But then, I looked at my own experience with charity, and particularly the nonprofit sector. And, I always felt like I wanted to be able to give as frequently as people were able to ask. But, when I personally budget my finances for the year, I can only allocate so much to that portion every year. And so I think that it was kind of this paradigm shift for me where I realized the efficiency that we can have by incorporating a social mission into our business model, something that people consume socks on a regular basis anyway. So this is an opportunity for us to align, to help solve a problem is something that people are already doing anyway. And we went through the same process that anybody goes through when you start a business. You write the business plan, you write the margin analysis, you look at the financials, and you have to make sure it works from a business perspective. But we, through innovation and cost-cutting measures and also going direct to consumer, we found ways that we were able to build in the margin by able to essentially double the cost of our product, but still be able to have enough margin to operate the business and grow, and have an impact that. It reminds me, there was this charity that, the first charity partner that we worked with was an organization called Hannah Socks. And I remember thinking that they've been in business, I think, for about 7 years. And that year, in 2013, they wanted to donate, their goal for the year was 250,000 pairs. Now, in 2.5 years, we've nearly donated 1 million. It's just a much more efficient model because we're not asking, you're not always going out and asking people to donate, right? You're building it into something that they're doing already. So for us, it was just it made sense.
And Charity Charge is a for-profit company, but under that, you can elect to become what's called a public benefit corporation. And essentially what that means is that we have a dual mission to both maximize shareholder value, which is the legal definition of a corporation, but also to, in our case, maximize charitable giving. And I think part of our decision to do this, somewhat similar to Dave's, and also is a little bit different. I think it differs in the sense that when I thought about launching this company and my background, I originally worked at a group called the Austin Technology Incubator, which is part of UT, where I was surrounded by all of these entrepreneurs that were mentors to me and that I really learned from. And so the model that I knew, quite frankly, was a for-profit company. The nonprofit world, there's a lot of legality to that. There are a lot of different things you need to set up, and it just seemed like from getting from point A to point B as a young entrepreneur, the for-profit path made the most sense. And I also don't mind saying that I truly believe in shared prosperity, and that, first and foremost, that we talk about social entrepreneurship, but I think that every company is a social enterprise in and of itself, because they're out there creating jobs, and as they grow, it does wonderful things for the local economy and the global economy. And for Charity Charge, felt that we had an opportunity to create a tremendous amount of value for nonprofits, religious organizations, schools, but that also I wanted to build prosperity for myself and for people that gain equity and things in our company to entice them.
Yeah, I think for us, we don't view giving in any way as a marketing effort. In fact, I think if you view it as a marketing effort, you're setting up to fail. It really must be integrated into the core of your business and what you're trying to achieve from a business perspective. I mean, when you consider that 89% of the Fortune 500 companies that exist in the mid-1950s no longer exist, there's a transformation that's required in business today. Part of that transformation is a digital transformation. You see a lot of disruption in areas like transportation with Uber or Spotify with music, and that same level of kind of disruption that technology has caused in those pretty established vertical markets. We see that same thing happening with corporate social responsibility, where when you consider that, in 2050 we're heading to a world with over 9 billion people in it, that sustainability and corporate responsibility are really what's key to sustain a long-term profitable business. And the more that you can connect your giving strategies and your social entrepreneurship strategies with your core business strategies, it's what's going to lead to the success of the giving strategy, what you're trying to achieve, but it's also going to lead to the success of the business. In the sense that the more that you can kind of do those things and enable the sustainability of the business, it's what enables you to have long-term profitability. And especially with us as a private company now, it allows us to take that longer-term view and do things with consistency versus on this quarterly kind of shot clock that we've been on for so many years. And so we don't view it in any way as just something we're doing to make ourselves feel good or as a marketing effort, but really we believe it's the way that a good, sustainable, impactful business should be set up to not only maximize what you're doing in society, but also frankly to maximize your profit.
Ruben as well, do you want to, Scott?
Yeah, Elliot, I think it comes down to what all of you would say, which effectively is consumer behavior. Like Dave kind of touched on, it's people are used to buying socks. Let's give them an opportunity to buy socks that also do good. And I think as that consumer behavior has continued to change, it's less about, to be frank, like giving loyalty and more about giving access. Where can I incorporate my giving, whether it's with a pair of socks or with a mobile product. Those things, kind of the behavior from the room is what dictates everything that we do as entrepreneurs and as businesses. So I think that shift has been the biggest thing into, instead of, let's stop viewing like nonprofits over here and for-profit businesses over here, but the reality is they're right here. They're much more converged than really ever before. So for us, social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs as for-profit businesses, the opportunity to, kind of like Stephen said, to maximize both sides of that, to maximize revenue efficiency as well as social good, but on a local and global scale. That's just a unique opportunity that I think we're kind of presented with in 2016 that for the most part hasn't been there. So my biggest point would be consumer behavior is what's driving everything that we're doing.
Yeah, Ruben, I mean, it's interesting for you because also you've got Core Media, which is this other entity, and you've got Austin plus Social Good. Talk to me about the intersection of those two.
You know, it's interesting because I did not plan for Core Media to be a teenage pregnancy, and so I feel like I became a grandfather in a way, right? And we came out with this beautiful baby called Plus Social Good, Austin plus Social Good, and you know, I would never think about just shutting it down because of all the impact it's had. And to me, we also battle with the idea: should we become a for-profit for Austin plus Social Good, a non-profit? Where do we lie? At the crux of it, at the nexus of it, it's really how are we delivering maximum value to our service, to our audience, to our customer base, to where they would no longer think about doing it themselves or finding another substitute to do so. And so we try to apply that both in our company, Core Media, and also within Austin plus Social Good. And so we'll be growing our services and portfolio here in the next year. But that's really at the key mission. How do we help you create more impact yourself?
Yeah, that's really cool, and that probably is a good segue to the next question that Chelsea, Dave, whoever wants to jump in and answer this, that balancing social good and cutting edge product. Do you ever feel like sometimes that the cutting edge product needs to be maybe drawn back, or maybe you have an earlier thing that you go to market with because you want it to have social good, but you can't quite work out the margins to be both super aggressive on product design or on the next generation of product? Dell too, I mean, you've got amazing work going on in mushroom packaging and the use of wheat straw, all these different sustainable packaging elements, using waste from the oceans, plastics from the oceans, and building that back into packaging. Is there any kind of hard decisions being made whether to go forward with kind of product cycle and product design versus social good? Yeah, have you had to face that battle?
Personally, in our business, no. Again, you know, we really approach everything from the business standpoint. But I did know that, you know, charity's not going to sell the product, right? It's something that's certainly going to help in word of mouth and you know the actual impact of the business. But at the end of the day, consumers are still buying your product because it's the product. You know, you wouldn't eat something that tastes terrible just because it helps somebody else. You know, so we find that we have a focus on the product as much as we do the mission, knowing that based on our core our core values, we would never compromise on the mission, but we would also never compromise on shipping a terrible product. So our product development they don't exist without each other.
And it may not be
never a compromise.
And it may not be like a terrible product that you can go out with, but one that's not as leading or cutting edge as
no. I mean, you just don't ship shitty products.
But just to that point, it's like, there were companies that got in trouble. I know there was like marketing around Tom's. I don't know if it was true or not, so I don't want to speak to the truth of it, but some, they were saying, they're shipping a different type of shoe than the one that the consumer buys. And so when I was curious about Bombas, I was like, are they giving the same types of socks to the homeless as they are to the people who are buying them online and elsewhere? And then I read, they are shipping different socks, but it's only because the homeless had different needs. They wanted darker colors that didn't show dirt as well. They wanted some, that you gave them some antimicrobial treatment so they didn't smell up as quickly. That's the official term, smell up. I don't know what you call it. and that you were reinforcing the seams. And I was like, I think I'm about to change all my socks over to Bombas socks. That sounds pretty cool. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, we took the same product development mentality towards our donation sock that we did our consumer sock. And look, you evolve as you grow your business and you learn. And at first, we were super driven by wanting to donate the same exact product that our customers got to the people who are living on the street. Because I know the feeling that I had when I first put on the final product and was like, wow, this is really something that's truly different. And I wanted the people that we're serving to feel that same experience. And as part of our, I kind of called myself on it early and said, you have to make sure that you stay as close to the mission as possible. So I always carry around socks with me, and this was early on in the days I was handing out pairs of socks, and I had a gray and pink pair. And this woman was like, do you have any darker colors? And I was kind of stopped and I was like, oh, here I am, I'm giving something that I know is in need, but she still is asking me for something that's different than what I have. And so I started thinking like, oh, maybe their needs are not the same needs that we are for the customer, and that's where we decided to go back and work with our charity partners, spend 6 months on product development for our donation sock to create a product that more specific addresses their needs on the streets.
Cool. Chelsea, are the businesses coming into your workspaces, are they having to face that challenge?
Absolutely, and I think it's one of the most interesting things about this sector. It is so beautifully complicated because every product has 5 different ways that you could intentionally further connect to that mission. And it's true for any consumer product or any mobile app or any corporation and business, and then you layer on the social impact component or the civic impact component, and it just gets astronomically more complicated, which to people who believe in the mission just makes it astronomically more interesting. And I think it's really important. I appreciate your transparency around your journey and all of that, because it's the only way we're all going to figure it out is to physically come together or online or however, to just work together and talk about what that journey is like and ask the questions very transparently so we can help each other along the way. That's my kumbaya answer.
Jeremy, what about you guys pushing forward on innovation versus...
Yeah, I'd say 2 things. I think first of all, if you're really interested in making sustained, long-term positive impact, you absolutely cannot compromise on your product design and hope that people recognize that you're doing good in the terms of whether it's closed loop, circular recycling that we do around. Even today we announced we're going to start doing research around reclaiming ocean plastics and put back into our products. We've recycled carbon fiber, but in each of those areas, it's critical that the product itself still lives up to the exact same requirements that we had with virgin materials and all of our other. In fact, we've actually learned a lot through that process that actually improved our supply chain in some areas. On the flip side, I also think that you can't compromise on all that a lot of companies do to start and kind of how you kind of get efficiency in your business operations. When you have a mission that you're trying to achieve, you also can't sacrifice on your kind of normal business hygiene, if you will, and how you run a company and how you run. You can, a lot of times, your mission can get sacrificed because you don't invest in some of the basic block and tackle of what you need to run a business, to run an organization efficiently. And so I think not only can the product not be compromised in search of a mission, I also think that how you run a business and business best practices can't be compromised, because in the end it will result in you not being sustainable, and that your mission will not be able to be achieved if you can't put those basic pieces in place. And so if you're not looking at those kind of things, I think that's equally important to invest in those kind of normal business hygiene pieces, if you will, as it is kind of the core product itself.
I'm conscious of time, so I want to make sure we get questions from the audience, because I know there's some super smart people in this room. And so just shoot your hand up if you've got questions, because I'd love to be able to tailor some specific things to the needs of the people in the room. Yep. What's your name first then?
What's that?
What's your name?
My name's Tony Weber. I'm a nonprofit fundraiser. I work with a group called Catholic Extension. For those of you who do directly interface with nonprofits, some of you seem to empower donors, and some of you seem to interact directly with nonprofits. What are you looking for in a nonprofit partner? What do they need to be bringing to you in order for them to clearly be bringing the type of impact that you want to have?
Could you hear the question in the back? Yep. Okay. So basically, it's like, what are these people looking for in a non-profit partner in order to ensure that they've got the impact that's desired?
Sure. So for Charity Charge, so you have a sense of how we're working our system. We've partnered with an organization called Network for Good and another organization called GuideStar, so that from day one in our system, we already have every single charity, K-12 school and religious organization, card holders can sign up anywhere in the country and choose to support local, national, across the board. From a nonprofit perspective, we use this term called culturally relevant. I don't know if that's necessarily the best kind of framework for it, but there are many nonprofits that are still very old school in their marketing tactics. Even you can generally just see just by going to their website, is it mobile friendly or not, is kind of my first test of, is this an organization that really could be a great marketing partner for us? But definitely organizations that have figured out a way to leverage social media to get in front of their constituency. And that for us is really a key driver in organizations that can co-market with us and that we're really eager to work with.
Have you found one tool in social media more helpful than any other?
I wouldn't say one tool, but it's interesting to watch the nonprofits because I think Facebook was really the first scalable social media platform. And obviously nonprofits jumped onto that. What I find interesting now is to see how are they trying to engage on other platforms. So looking at what nonprofits are doing on Instagram, looking at what certain nonprofits are doing on Snapchat. We're trying to really figure out our Snapchat strategy. And I think if you look at, even though their audience might not be as large or their followers on those platforms, they have much deeper engagement, and it's interesting ways that we can produce content with them for those platforms.
Anyone else want to take that one?
Yeah, for us, the simple answer is nothing. We're not looking for anything specific from a nonprofit. If you are genuine about your cause, and clearly you guys, or any nonprofit has a mission that you guys are doing work to do, frankly, we see that as our job to give you the tools to further your mission. Whether that's with you guys specifically or any nonprofit that is looking to fundraise, looking to engage donors specifically from a mobile perspective, which is what we do, which is difficult because obviously for us, kind of like Steven said, we want to empower donors as well, and part of that experience is showcasing culturally relevant or valuable nonprofits to donors who care about those causes. However, specifically for our business as a mobile giving app, which again, we want to empower donors to download an app and be able to give seamlessly to a cause. So for us, it's really about how can we empower you guys, which has obviously plenty of obstacles and challenges in itself. But the reality is, nonprofits are the lifeblood for our business. Without nonprofits to give to in a valuable way for you guys, then we effectively have nothing. So.
Yeah, for me, a lot of the campaigns that we look to partner with nonprofits on, I'm looking for local specificity because I want people to be engaged over the long term. I don't want anything that we put anywhere to, even if it's with a large international organisation, I don't want to run the risk that they won't be in that specific place, in that specific geography in the next few years. So I like partnering with locally specific, local knowledge nonprofits, and finding those is important for me. There's a question in we'll take the one in the third row and then in the back.
My name is Jordan Price. I run a local entrepreneurship project here in Austin. And I want to thank the SOT guy for spending that extra time looking at your one-for-one project. I lived in Africa over 5 years, and I can't tell you the number of companies who just decide to give something away or do a one-for-one, and most one-for-ones are very damaging to local communities, increase dependency, make people poor. The Crocs, the one-for-one for a little while. The shoes they sent were awful. Tom's also, the one-for-ones used to be pretty bad, but they've gotten better. So I just want to say thank you so much. We try to get away. In nonprofit life, most things are donor-driven. I mean, you just look at who has the money and where that money is going. So I'm really thrilled that you're looking at that other piece.
Very cool. And then question in the back. And that was a cool props for the SOT guy. Well done, SOT guy.
I had a specific question. My name is Corinna Boston-Pinales. I consult with startups that either have a social good element or want to make a social impact. Traditionally, investors look at problems and throwing money into problems in the charitable space versus throwing money towards or capital towards solutions. How do you guys see the investment climate shifting and changing towards taking more of that risk for actual solutions versus the approach that we're traditionally used to, where we're shifting money towards the issue and we measure that impact by how much the problem or the challenge has been reduced? So how are we going to shift towards throwing towards solutions that might not have been proven or might not have been implemented, but then we can start feeling comfortable doing that?
That's a really good question. I've just come off the back of a couple of summits that have been talking specifically about the potential impact for social impact bonds, which have been big in the UK. They've been introduced in Australia and now just getting kind of popular in the US, and a pay for success model where governments don't have to actually put up the money in advance, that there are impact investors now, people in the finance sector who are willing to put that money in for perhaps a slightly smaller return, but they'll provide the money to the non-profits to run programs that have an established track record, maybe on a small scale, but help them get it to a larger scale. And then once you have that success and, for example, decrease prison recidivism rates or decreasing mass incarceration, we can say that that county or that state had a reduction in cost of X%, and that those and then the government pays based on that success model. So personally, that's what I'm seeing in this space, a lot of focus around these issues, especially from multi-generational wealth transfer. People, like there's $1 trillion being transferred from generation to generation now. And of course, we're seeing people get wealthier younger, and instead of the old models where people gave away money at the end of their life cycle, you've got the most prime example, of course, being Mark Zuckerberg getting super wealthy in his 20s. And what's exciting to me about that is that he can have real impact year upon year upon year in different sectors over the next 60 years as he ages. So whether that's giving $100 million to the New Jersey school system, or it's investing in breakthrough awards for scientists or whatever. So to me, that's like, that question is becoming one of the most exciting things in this space. Anyone would like to address that?
Yeah, I would never stand up on a soapbox and say that, by donating a pair of socks, to the homeless community for every pair that we purchase, we're going to have this profound impact on ending homelessness. But I knew that I was very clear about, what I wanted, where my expertise was in terms of growing a business and marketing and branding, and what I could then use that to leverage, which is basically, I knew that I wanted this to start the conversation around the issues facing people, that are in the homeless community. I wanted to use this as an ability to build up a big enough platform that we could use this as a jumping off point to then share content and other media forms about issues facing people in the homeless community. I mean, we came here to Austin and yesterday we went out with an organization here called Mobile Loaves and Fishes, and again, I'm learning new things every day that, some people are very familiar with the Housing First program, which is, it costs less to give a homeless person an apartment than it does to all the facilities and services that are provided to them outside if they're living on the streets. But this is a new concept that the gentleman who's been running the organization here for 12 years is community first, and he raised $14 million over the last 2 years and has built this 250 tiny home project just 7 miles outside of the downtown of Austin. I encourage all of you to go see it. It is mind-blowing. And it's really, he himself, in working closely with the homeless community over these many years, found out that the majority of people became homeless when there was a tragic loss of family and friend networks. And he wants to help bring that community aspect back into their lives rather than just putting them in a box, and leaving them to their own accord. And so that to me was whoa. And so now I'm going to be able to sit on panels like this and share that news with everybody else. And, we'll draft email content around that and send that out to our 300,000 people on our email list. And so, I knew that my purpose for this was to never, necessarily have a major impact by giving away a pair of socks, but if we can inspire people to think about this issue and get the conversation going, then the trickle down of that. And that's where I say, I think Tom's gets a lot of flack because they're the easiest one. They're the easiest one to target. But frankly, if every other shoe company in the world had donated a pair of shoes for every pair that they sold, then the whole, there would never be an issue globally around, people needing shoes, and then those other workers would never have to do, they'd find other work that, could subsidize that. So I think they're the easy target, and but frankly, I wouldn't be sitting here without them, and they've I think their lasting impact is that they've inspired this real next generation of social entrepreneurs that, without them, I don't think I ever would have, it never would have clicked for me.
Yeah, and in fact, have just launched a social venture fund as well.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. I think that the part of the conversation, or rather the question, was about the metrics and kind of how to show that to potentially an investor. My experience is that the social impact community is just not mature enough yet. I can tell you that when we originally thought about how we would kind of present this company as a great investment opportunity, we focused a lot on what the charitable impact would be, and we quickly realized that at the end of the day, it all got down to how do you make money, how are you going to generate us a return. There's some great things that Dave coached me up on about a year ago when he was a mentor on this reality show that Charity Charge was a part of, that IBM sponsored. And so I think it comes back to just the black and white of how do you make money and how are you going to do it if I'm an investor. I think the other equation that I would just put out there for anybody that's a social entrepreneur looking to raise money is just to look out for yourself. I can't tell you how many people I ran into or people suggested I pitch that claim that they're a social impact investor. And what that really means is maybe once, 3 years ago, they invested $10,000 in some random company and they now call themselves an angel investor or a social impact investor. So, my advice really to social entrepreneurs looking to raise money is just be careful who you're talking to and really recognize that there's a value of your time. And don't give it out too freely. And also recognize that the challenge really, there's a lot we can talk about and kind of play up social impact investing, and it's great, but it's just not where it needs to get yet. Is there were a lot of also reputable funds that would go and pitch, but then we'd find out that their average investment size is $12,500 or $25,000. And there's just a disconnect of, if we're trying to raise $250,000, I don't want to have 10 random people on my cap table to get to that amount. So I'm just looking to see the amount of capital deployed by the social impact community is going to have to go up if it's going to make a serious impact.
Is that a geographic limitation, do you think?
I can speak mostly to Austin on that one, so Dave might have some more insight, more in New York or other areas about social impact investing.
Yeah, I don't think traditionally, I don't think of an investor who invested in our company, for which we've raised, over $3 million to date, as what I consider to be real social impact investing. I'm a part of this organization called Nexus, which is really empowering that next generation of major wealth holders. They're talking about the families of Mars and S.C. Johnson. Names that obviously everybody here knows. And when I go to this summit every year, I see people that are inventing products for third world countries that are bringing light into the home for the first time, or creating bridges that save 12 hours off of a commute for people to simply bring water or basic food supplies into their day. That to me I consider more what I define as social impact investing. But that's why this space is so new that I think we've got to get better around what we define as certain aspects. But for us, raising capital, we're a business, and as long as we had the metrics for how are we going to grow the business while also still never compromising on our core mission, that's what investors invest for. And you can't. You've got to figure out what motivates each person separately, and investors are looking to get a return on their money, typically. And then in the social impacting investing space, which I think is, again, better targeted at these very, very large, individually large, wealth holders, where they can write a few $1 million checks, and their $2 billion family fortune is, if it goes sideways or they never see $1 back from that in an actual return, it's not going to have much of an impact on their overall portfolio. But somebody that invests for a living, you need to build in an actual monetary return for them. Yeah, go for it.
This is something that we talk a lot about in my household. My husband works in social impact investing and brings up a really good point, which is obviously investors are looking for a return. And so I think it's our collective responsibility to define what that return actually means. Financial return, absolutely. Traditional investors are used to getting X percentage points. So if consumers, and there's a groundswell of consumers, thank you millennials, who are saying business as usual is no longer good enough, that starts to mean something very, very different when it comes to return that has a monetary value, also brand value, has customer adoption value, which may take a while. And yes, this is incredibly, incredibly new. 4 years ago, when I would say social impact, I would have to really clarify that, no, not social media. And now we talk about social impact, and everyone understands, okay, maybe not everyone, but definitely a larger percentage of people. So I think it's, again, our collective responsibility to talk how we vote with our feet and with our pocketbooks, and make sure that those more traditional investors, whether they're angel, whether they're VC, whether you're consumers, and what kind of stocks you buy, what shirt you buy, that you're really exercising your conscience.
Very cool, Ruben.
Just to finish out that thought, if you look at how ecosystems and communities are built, and if you look at it, think about it as a ladder. Right now, when you think about social impact and social impact investing, social innovation and entrepreneurship, there's rungs, but there's not a sequential line of rungs, right? There's like here, there, shoot all the way up there, then you get a meeting with big New York hedge fund or whatever. What we need in order for this ecosystem and for this community to thrive is two things. We need investors to actually get their hands dirty, right? Because while they deserve to get their return, they can't just sit here with their arms crossed and saying, well, there's just not good enough deal flow here. Just, I need to go elsewhere to look for good deals. And then two, we need the social impact companies who have had some success be also willing to double down and mentor that next generation. Because until we start getting more quality companies, that argument is still going to continue. And this is a conversation I've been involved with for like 3 or 4 years now. There's just not enough good companies. There's no money. And I don't know if you guys you guys are all from Austin. Have you been following the discussion about the lack of investment capital that's going on here? That could go into another conversation, but what I point out is, I think there is good ideas here. We probably won't be the next Silicon Valley, nor do we want to be. We're probably not going to have billion-dollar valuations coming out the gate here, but we can have really good companies that actually change the world. They need to have business sense, but we also need investors to also be willing to step in and help build those runs out.
Very cool. So we'll take one last question, and then some of these guys and one girl will stick around for further questions. But Kimberly, you had your hand up as well.
Hi, yeah, Kimberly. This is primarily for Jeremy, just because of Dell being established and around for so long. Do you think, and is it important to put resources behind being public about your contributions? Because someone who's in this sort of sphere knows about what's going on, but to establish a kind of repertoire and making sure that established companies, not new ones that are creating one-for-one models, are also doing their part. Like, don't just sit there with their arms crossed and let the new people establish that. So like setting an example. Is it important, and is it something that you invest resources into, making sure?
Let me clarify the question. So
Yeah.
as far as what I see in corporations is sometimes giving in CSR is viewed as a marketing focus. And every time they do something good, it's, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, look how good I'm doing. And I think in some respects, in the same way you get distracted by mission in any corporation, that can distract your mission. And so for us, in our perspective is we want to be very open and transparent about what we're trying to achieve and what our goals are, and that's why we published our Legacy of Good 2020 report with 21 goals we report on every year, and really have this open dialogue, even if some of the results aren't heading in the direction that we want to, because we believe that openness is kind of key. But also we believe that just doing the right thing and just kind of keep doing the right thing, in the end, the brand and marketing and all that will kind of take care of itself. And so, for us, it's about, even related to the last conversation of, what's so exciting about the impact investing space is that even some of the sustainability development goals from the UN, it's given us a common language. And so whether you're an individual employee that's volunteering their time, 4 hours a quarter at Capital Area Food Bank or any other organization, or whether you're managing millions of dollars strategic grants, you want to know you're making a difference. And so what's interesting about the impact investing and a lot of the reporting is that you can now begin to have a common metric and a common terminology that you can use to talk about with other peer groups, but also even the concept of social return on investment is beginning to give us a way to demonstrate to our employees, to we have one shareholder, Michael Dell, fundamentally at this point, but really be able to kind of demonstrate to them why giving is important, why there's value in it. And so I think that those kind of pieces are kind of key. I think the marketing side takes care of itself, and you just keep doing the right thing, and the impacts that you're doing will eventually just kind of speak for themselves, versus trying to pretend that you're doing great work through some marketing effort. Eventually, both consumers and your employees and even the people you partner with are going to see through that.
Very cool. So I know we're running late, so I just want to say a huge thank you, Ruben, Scott, Jeremy, Stephen, Dave, Chelsea.
Thank you, Elliot.
Elliot. Thanks very much.